Well, good morning and welcome to the second week of Ordinary Time, especially as we gather on this Thursday morning. We continue with 1 Samuel in the first reading, learning a little bit more about David, and we continue to observe Jesus in the early movements of the Gospel of Mark, and today he retreats off to a deserted place and cures many people, but I was really drawn today to the response, not necessarily to the first reading of the Gospel, but to the response. Really drawn to the beauty of Psalm 56. And I love the response today that accompanies Psalm 56. In God I trust, I shall not fear. Verse 10 of Psalm 56 says, I know that God is with me, and God in whose promise I glory, and God I trust without fear. What can flesh do against me? I think it's beautiful, and I think that a lot of us know what fear is like. I think a lot of us face fear, experience fear. It's one of those things that is almost universal amongst all of humanity, but something I think it's very difficult for us to speak about sometimes. As you look at fear, I think an image that would help us would be a campfire. I love to fish on Mondays and love to get out there on Sunday nights, and oftentimes I fish with a buddy of mine, and as we're eating dinner we usually build a fire and just kind of share our hearts and kind of talk about the journey together, and there's something very beautiful about the campfire. Two things about a campfire: you have to know how to build a fire, you have to know how to relish in the mystery, almost the mystique of the fire itself, but you got to watch out for smoke too. Whether the wood is green or too much water in the wood, there can often be at times a lot of smoke, and it can distract you from the beauty of the fire. Same thing is with fear. A lot of times we can be distracted by things in life. Let's just say that there's a circumstance that you're facing right now, and that circumstance elicits fear. And what often accompanies fear is lots of other things that either we don't necessarily know of or we don't necessarily recognize. And perhaps with the fear, there is accompanying thoughts that I'm alone. Or maybe what accompanies the fear is I'm doing the wrong thing. Or maybe what accompanies the fear is I'm stuck and I'm never going to get out of this. But it's real easy for us as we're facing circumstances in life to experience the emotion of fear and other thoughts that accompany it. And all of that is the smoke that often distracts us. God's the fire. And in the midst of all the smoke, it's important for us to keep our eyes on the fire. The psalm said, I know that God is with me. And God I trust without fear. It doesn't mean that we trust in God and there's not going to be fear, but I think what the psalmist is inviting us to is to trust in God who's with us, and to know who's with us, and to know that we don't have to be afraid if God is with us. Now, it doesn't mean that the circumstances are going to go away, and it certainly doesn't mean that the circumstances are always going to be easy in life. But what it does mean is that you and I are never alone, and if there's ever any whisper in our life that we have to face something by ourselves, or that we've been abandoned, or that the pressure's on us, it's important for us to know that God is with us in all things, especially the moments in our life where we are afraid. I encourage you to maybe pray with Psalm 56 today. Maybe read it 2 or 3 times, and as you read it, slow down every time you read it, and maybe let a word or a phrase really speak to you. Or maybe consider the moments in your own life where you have been afraid, the moments in your own life where you have needed God the most. And if you're facing something today and you're afraid, I would encourage you to let the scripture speak to you today. That God is speaking to you now. And that God is telling you now that he is with you, and you do not have to be afraid. God bless you.